Hey y'all, Professor Wolf here. Another short video for students in my Net World Religions class at College of DuPage in fall 2024. This video is about how to take notes for the class. So there's a study guide on world religions on the Blackboard site for the course. I've mentioned this previously, didn't really talk much about it, didn't really talk about how to use it to take notes. If you look at the document, it actually does explain how to use it to take notes, but I haven't really gone into detail about this before. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have made a video on this earlier for y'all. We're at the beginning of week 3. This is the last week for our unit on Judaism. Anyhow, you could use this study guide. You could use everything I'm going to say in this video to help you take notes going forward the rest of the semester. And we're not really too far into the term. You could actually go back and reread the materials on Judaism that you've already read if you want, and take notes, take new notes on them. Again, I've had a little bit of worry about overloading students with too much at the beginning of the term, but this is really important. So anyhow, let's get to it. So before I get into the details of how to take notes, let me say a little bit about why to take notes. So again, I understand many of you may not be that religious, or many of you may be religious, but you've already got your religion, and you might be saying, hey, why do I need to learn about these other religions? Well, you're in the class, and I think we can also appreciate that whether we have a religion or not, it is really important for all sorts of reasons to learn about these religions. Massive impact on history, massive impact on the world today, actually can be important in business in all sorts of ways. The reasons go on and on. Actually, I think a lot of you get that. Obviously, taking notes on what we read can help us learn about the religions better, obviously, but as I always emphasize, it could also help us to develop our critical thinking, our reading, our writing skills, these core academic skills, these basic academic skills, right? Even if you never read your notes again, the sheer act of taking them can help you learn the material better and develop your thinking, develop your reading, develop your writing. It absolutely can do that. This applies to the classroom. It applies outside of the classroom, a face-to-face class, a hybrid class, a net class. If we know how to take notes and we're diligent about it, one thing it does, it makes us much more active listeners in the class. It makes us much more active readers outside the class, or maybe in the class, if you're reading in the class, right? It makes us much more active and much more critical. And just the whole process, again, even if we never review the notes, it is continually building our thinking, and it's going to help you remember a lot. Let's say a little more about this. You may wonder to yourself, well, how much am I actually supposed to get out of this class? I understand that you're not going to remember every single fact that your eyes alight upon in the textbook. No one can do that. If you do the reading, if you take the assignment seriously, you take the exam seriously, you take it all seriously, you listen to the videos I send you, you're engaged with this. And I don't just mean your eyes are scanning the page to rush through the assignment as quickly as possible. I mean you're actually really trying to engage with the assignments and in the readings and everything. You will retain a lot of facts. You will also forget some, but you will retain a lot. And a lot of core facts, the most core facts, you'll get those. Those get reinforced in the reading. They get reinforced in my reading quizzes. They get reinforced in exams. They get reinforced in other materials I send you. You get a lot. You'll retain a lot. But the course is about a lot more than that. It's about developing our critical thinking about religion and everything that religious studies involves, which includes history and the reading of texts and you name it, right? Philosophy, like your logical skills will actually improve if you really engage this stuff seriously. And if you look at our texts, they're not perfect, but sometimes they're actually pretty good. You'll see that they're not just giving you facts. Like, it is important to have some facts in religion, right? Like, you want to know that the Buddha comes actually where he was born according to tradition is in modern day Nepal, but there was no Nepal back then. There was just a land across the Indus River. We can call it India. You want to know that the Buddha comes from the land across the Indus River, that he comes from northern India, we could say. Let's not worry again about Nepal or Bhutan or other places like that. You want to know he comes from northern India and not from China. You want to know the Buddha lived about 2,500 years ago, not 500 years ago. Like, these are some key basic facts which come up again and again in the readings. They come up again and again. They come up and again in the extra materials I send you. They come up in the exams, you name it, right? And the books are full of this stuff, as I just mentioned several times now. But if you pay attention, you'll see the books don't just present this kind of material. There's all sorts of material that the books contain. And one thing they discuss is different interpretations of the religion, both from inside the religion itself and from modern scholars, and debates about history and all sorts of things that really gets you into, how scholars, develop hypotheses and test hypotheses, debate hypotheses about religion, debate theories about religion, and all this other great stuff that's so good for critical thinking, right? The texts are full of this stuff. And I think, frankly, if we were face-to-face, you'd get a lot more out of this, because we'd have a really great discussion about it every day. But, we're not, and I get it that, like, a lot of you need that flexibility. That's fine. But even though we're not face-to-face, you can get a lot of this out of the text. You can get a lot of this out of the text. You get a lot of it out of the other materials. And I promise you, if you really engage with the materials in the class, you do the reading and do it seriously, you take the assignments seriously, you don't maybe watch every single video I send you, whether I made it or somebody else made it, but you watch some of that stuff, you really take the exam seriously, you will not just walk away with this class with a lot of the facts. You'll walk away with a much deeper understanding of how to think about religion, and that'll actually help you to develop your core academic skills, basic academic skills, again, critical thinking, reading, and writing. Taking notes on the reading is actually really, really helpful for this. So how do you take notes on the reading? Well, let's look at the general study guide for the course. It's on Blackboard. There's an introduction. There's a section on how to use it. So I'm actually not going to talk through all this now. I'm going to point you to the resource on Blackboard. But one thing I would say is, in general, just summarize this. For myself, every time I read a book, an article, you name it, I open a file on my computer. I pretty much only read with my computer now. Sometimes that's a little bit of a pain, but it is what it is. I think it's good to do the stuff on a computer, right? So I open a new file on my computer. I'll put in little headers, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, so I can keep it nice and organized. And then as I'm reading, I will just jot down notes. I'll type out notes on what? There's no formula for this, but I think for a class like this, it really makes sense to focus on things that are most important or most interesting to you, are not necessarily the same. There might be something that really, really interests you that just doesn't really interest scholars a whole lot. Take notes on it. You're interested in it. It's for you, right? You can absolutely do that. Like, I don't know, maybe for some reason, like, you're really, really interested in religion in Canada, right? And, textbook only says a little bit about it. Well, you might take notes on all of that. Maybe you're not so interested in, I don't know, religion in Argentina. Textbook's probably not going to talk too much about that, so maybe you take fewer notes on that. It's okay for you to focus on things that are a little more interesting to you, except I think we can make a good case that some things are just important for all of us. It's just important for all of us to learn about. And what would these be? I don't really like using the phrase basic facts here for a few reasons. One is because basic facts are often a little bit more complicated than we appreciate in religion, but certainly the most basic facts and basic debates about what? About the elements of the religion. What are the elements? Well, let's look at the study guide. History and demographics, major historical events in the religion. You might say, well, I don't know if that event really happened. Well, if the religion says it did, just write it down. You can put a question mark next to it if you want. You can question it all you want. But if it's important to the religion, write it down, flag it, right? Demographics. This kind of means, like, where do you find the religion today? What parts of the world today? Really quick with demographics, right? Really, really quick. With Islam, there's still a lot of Americans that think that basically all Arabs are Muslim and all Muslims are Arabs. Well, there's quite a few Arabs that are not Muslim, right? There's a fair number of Arab Christians. There's some Arab Jews. There's Arab atheists. There's probably some Arabs converted to Rastafarianism, right? So not all Arabs are Muslim, though many, many are. But the majority of Muslims are Arabs. Some of you probably already know this, that the most populous Muslim country in the world is actually Indonesia, followed by Pakistan and India. Though Pakistan and India. India may overtake Pakistan soon in terms of numbers of Muslims, right? Like Saudi Arabia is like way down on a list. It's not a hugely populous country. So these kind of things are really interesting. Like, how many Jews are there in the world? Not that many. Where do they live? If there aren't that many, why do we spend so much time on Judaism? Partly because of its historical significance, especially for Christianity and Islam. So, there it is. Like, basic events in the religion or major events in the religion, basic demographic information, how many people are in this religion, basically where do they live? Christianity and Islam are pretty global. They're all over the world. Not all religions are like that, right? Sikhism is mostly ethnic Punjabis, right? Okay, let's move on. I'm just following my study guide on Blackboard right now. There are thoughts on the divine. Divine could be God, gods, goddesses, angels, demons, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, you name it. Basic views on the divine. We're getting into theology here. Views on cosmos and the afterlife. Views on human beings, For example, they think humans are innately good, innately bad, really neither. We were good, then became bad, or were bad and became good, how bad, right? I mean, these sorts of things. Basic views on ethics, often highly debated in religion. But one thing you might want to note about or note is you look at comparisons between religions. Like just take Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There's differences among different Jews, Christians, and Muslims about ethics, right? They don't all think the same about ethical issues and political issues, not all of the issues. But often, Jews, Christians, and Muslims tend to agree amongst themselves about at least some things, and they actually have some agreements with one another about some things, and also some disagreements. I mean, that stuff's fascinating, right? These patterns of similarity and dissimilarity. Rituals, and spiritual practices, how they, do they pray? How do they pray? Is there a set number of times they have to face a certain direction? Is there a special ritual washing they may have to go through? A certain space that it's ideal for them to be in? A certain language or languages they're supposed to use? Certain texts they're supposed to use? Right? Fasting, holidays, you name it. I find religious holidays absolutely fascinating, right? Some of you, it may not knock your socks off. Well, then maybe you take fewer notes on it. Maybe I take more on it. But we should all write down the major holidays, so at least write down the names and what they commemorate and maybe a little bit about how they're practiced. Judaism's kind of tough because there's so many holidays, right? But it'd be good to focus then on the ones that the textbook spends a lot of time on. Come back to that. Sacred texts. What are the sacred texts in the religion? What languages were they written in? Who supposedly wrote them? God and a human? Did a human not write it but receive it? Write down stuff about the texts. Authority and structure, is there a pope? If there's no pope, is there any other kind of structure they've got going on? Denominations. Now, here's the thing that gets tricky. There's denominations or branches or sects in all of these traditions we're studying. And they often disagree on how they interpret events in the history, elements of the sacred text. So really, it's not just that you got Judaism or Christianity or Islam. You've got different branches of these traditions. And then even within those branches, there's variation. And now at this point, you're already saying, oh my goodness, that's way too much complexity. I can't handle it all. Yeah, you can't actually. In a way, nobody can. Nobody can track all of that. So what do? Just do your best, just try your best. If you're not sure whether your notes really seem reasonable, send a copy to me. I'll take a look at them and let you know what I think. I might say, wow, amazing detail. Maybe you could even scale back. Maybe I'll say, maybe you could really scale up. I'm happy to take a look at them, right? Just try to do it really seems reasonable to you. Maybe think about it like this. Even if you're not going to read them again, write down enough that if you were to read them again, you'd be able to make sense out of what you wrote. Okay? The textbook can also be your guide. There's a lot of issues with textbooks, right? I was just alluding to this a second ago, so I'm picking up something from a moment ago. One issue with textbooks is that often I think that they sometimes they spend too little time on really important things and sometimes too much time on things that are secondary, tertiary, right? Not nearly as important. Maybe they should just skip. However, there's usually still like more attention paid to the most important things than the less important things. Now that's the judgment of the author, and the author is not perfect, but they're our guide for now because they're what we're starting with. So if the author spends like 5 pages on the Sabbath, I might take at least a couple sentences of notes on the Sabbath. If something like the mezuzah they mention in 2 sentences, maybe just skip it altogether, or maybe just one quick sentence on it, right? So how much space the author allots to a topic can be a key. Is there a whole section of the chapter dedicated to it? That might be something that's pretty important. My study guides also can help you figure out how to take notes. You could look at what I'm asking about and what I'm not asking about. Now, I got to be honest that with my reading quizzes, the reading quizzes I'm giving you on the assigned readings, a lot of times I'm making sure that I've got like at least a question per page of the chapter. So I'm just kind of trying to cover, all the pages and make sure you're reading all the pages. But you should still be able to see, like, why am I focusing on the questions I'm focusing on? It should maybe give you some guidance here and can help you that, once you finish the assignment, the reading quiz, let's say it's on Solomon chapters 2-3 or Solomon chapter 4-6, you could use that also as notes, as a guide. All right, when it comes down to the exams, they're take home. The whole class is take home. It's a net class, right? Will it be open book? Of course it is. If I said it weren't, I can't really enforce that. I think it's really got to be open book. You'll have a week to do it. You'll be all right. And I'll actually make you some supplementary videos for the midterm and final that'll really help you to do them. So don't sweat the midterm and the final. You'll be just fine. Just focus on trying to engage with the chapters as richly as you can, the assignments as richly as you can. Reach out to me again if you want to talk about anything, if you want resources on something, if you want me to take a look at your notes, if you want feedback on assignments. And you do that, you'll be solid and you'll leave this class, I guarantee, if you really do that and you don't mess around with ChatGPT and that nonsense, I guarantee that not only will you leave this class with a lot of information about religion, you'll have improved study skills, improved critical thinking, improved reading, writing, all that. Okay. Kind of see here, sun's going down. Hope you all have a good evening. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.